The BITE model. The BITE model is an outline written by Dr. Steven Hassan to identify cult-like behavior in various forms, using 4 different categories to identify certain behaviors that the cult leader will either exude or expect from people within their community. The B in BITE model stands for behavior control, the I for information control, the T for thought control, and lastly E for emotional control. Dr. Hassan himself was a victim of the Moonies cult back in the day, and after he left and got a little bit more education, he went ahead and started focusing on cult behaviors, eventually coming up with the BITE model to identify certain behaviors that would really start to point out a bigger picture of what defines a cult. A lot of us tend to think of just a commune as a cult, but so long as the commune doesn't force you to do anything, it's not really. And honestly, I think that's a very important distinction to make. You see, the word cult gets thrown around a lot when we're talking about groups of people we generally disagree with in some fashion, but a cult is a very specific thing. In fact, let's take a look at the definition of cult. The Oxford Dictionary describes a cult as a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. It goes further to describe a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. It further outlines that it could be a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. Behavior control is a means to coerce certain actions out of the cult member. It conditions the individual to act in ways that do not go against the morals, values, and image of the cult. It stands to reason that if you can influence the actions of the party, then the rest will tend to follow, especially if you can use the other 3 categories to bolster the mindset behind those actions. It can also tend to be easier to control other people as they see people participating in the behaviors deemed acceptable by the leaders, as people tend to have a kind of monkey see, monkey do kind of outlook. In general, it's easier if you see other people doing things to do them yourself, thinking that that makes them okay. However, this isn't always the case. Steven Hassan's list for behavior control starts with 1. Regulate individuals' reality. 2. Dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates. 3. When, how, and with whom the member has sex. 4. Control types of clothing and hairstyles. 5. Regulate diet, food and drink, hunger, and or fasting. 6. Manipulation or deprivation of sleep. 7. Financial exploitation, manipulation, or dependence. 8. Restrict leisure, entertainment, vacation time. 9. Major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals and or self-indoctrination, including the internet. 10. Permission required for major decisions. 11. Rewards and punishments used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative. 12. Discourage individualism, encourage groupthink. 13. Impose rigid rules and regulations. 14. Punish disobedience by beating, torture, burning, cutting, raping, or tattooing and branding. 15. Threaten harm to family and friends. 16. Force individual to rape or be raped. 17. Encourage and engage in corporal punishment. 18. Instill dependency and obedience. 19. Kidnapping. 20. Beating. 21. Torture. 22. Rape. 23. Separation of families. 24. Imprisonment. 25. Murder. Information control is a means to keep people placid through ignorance and to influence the party's mindset towards the cult's disposition, often through a means of gatekeeping, outright lies, and manipulation of the truth. Think of George Orwell's 1984 and how Big Brother kept information away from the masses and retconned their own publications as they saw fit. Uninformed people or misinformed people tend to be easier to mold to your liking. Steven Hassan's BITE model lists information control as signified by several markers. First is 1. Deception. A. Deliberately withhold information. B. Distort information to make it more acceptable. C. Systematically lie to the cult member. 2. Minimize or discourage access to non-cult sources of information, including A. Internet, TV, radio, books, articles, newspapers, magazines, and media. B. Critical information. C. Former members. D. Keep members busy so they don't have time to think and investigate. E. Control through cell phone with texting, calls, internet tracking. 3. Compartmentalize information into outsider versus insider doctrines. A. Ensure the information is not freely accessible. B. Control information at different levels and missions within groups. C. Allow only leadership to decide who needs to know what and when. 4. Encourage spying on other members. A. Impose a buddy system to monitor or control member. B. Report deviant thoughts, feelings, and actions to leadership. C. Ensure that individual behavior is monitored by group. 5. Extensive use of cult-generated information and propaganda, including A. Newsletters, magazines, journals, audio tapes, videotapes, YouTube, movies, and other media. B. Misquoting statements or using them out of context from non-cult sources. 6. Unethical use of confession. A. Information about sins used to disrupt and or dissolve identity boundaries. B. Withholding forgiveness or absolution. C. Manipulation of memory, possible false memories. Thought control is a way to internally steer the cult member towards blind faith. It is essentially a means to gaslight and manipulate a person into never questioning the structure set up by the leader. It also puts a certain focus on creating a mental barrier between the victim and the outside world, at least within their own head, and isolating them to only trust the cult's doctrine. Steven Hassan's model sets out a varying list of things that may help control the person's thought processes, such as 1. Require members to internalize the group's doctrine as truth. A. Adopting the group's map of reality as reality. B. Instill black and white thinking. C. Decide between good versus evil. D. Organize people into us versus them, insiders versus outsiders. 2. Change person's name and identity. 3. Use of loaded language and cliches which constrict knowledge, stop critical thoughts, and reduce complexities into platitudinous buzzwords. 4. Encourage only good and proper thoughts. 5. Hypnotic techniques are used to alter mental states, undermine critical thinking, and even to age regress the member. 6. Memories are manipulated and false memories are created. 7. Teaching thought-stopping techniques which shut down reality testing by stopping negative thoughts and allowing only positive thoughts, including A. Denial, rationalization, justification, wishful thinking. B. Chanting. C. Meditating. D. Praying. E. Speaking in tongues. F. Singing or humming. 8. Rejection of rational analysis, critical thinking, constructive criticism. 9. Forbid critical questions about leader, doctrine, or policy aloud. 10. Labeling alternative belief systems as illegitimate, evil, or not useful. 11. Instill new map of reality. While thought control has some emphasis on gaslighting, more so does emotional control. The main focus with emotional control is to keep the person tied to the cult via manipulating how they feel about themselves, their past, their future, the cult, and the outside world. Often insinuating to the party that their participation in the cult is to their own benefit, and that anything less is a weakness or otherwise unwise or dangerous. It focuses on fear, both of the physical consequences as well as the mental or spiritual ones. Steven Hassan lists the markers for emotional control as the following. 1. Manipulate and narrow the range of feelings. Some emotions and or needs are deemed as evil, wrong, or selfish. 2. Teach emotion-stopping techniques to block feelings of homesickness, anger, and doubt. 3. Make the person feel the problems are always their own fault, never the leader's or the group's fault. 4. Promote feelings of guilt or unworthiness, such as A. Identity guilt. B. You are not living up to your potential. C. Your family is deficient. D. Your past is suspect. E. Your affiliations are unwise. F. Your thoughts, feelings, actions are irrelevant or selfish. G. Social guilt. 5. Instill fear, such as the fear of A. Thinking independently. B. The outside world. C. Enemies. D. Losing one's salvation. E. Leaving or being shunned by the group. F. Others' disapproval. 6. Extremes of emotional highs and lows, love bombing and praise one moment and then declaring you are a horrible sinner. 7. Ritualistic and sometimes public confession of sins. 8. Phobia indoctrination. Inculcated irrational fears about leaving the group or questioning the leader's authority. A. No happiness or fulfillment possible outside the group. B. Terrible consequences if you leave. Hell, demon possession, incurable diseases, accidents, suicide, insanity, 10,000 incarnations, etc. C. Shunning of those who leave, fear of being rejected by friends and family. D. Never a legitimate reason to leave. Those who leave are weak, undisciplined, unspiritual, worldly, brainwashed by family or counselor, or seduced by money, sex, or rock and roll. E. Threats to harm of ex-member and family. Thank you everyone for coming by and listening to me drone on about the cult behavior found in Hassan's bite model. I was actually working on a much larger video and I'm probably going to cut this up into teeny tiny pieces. And before I did that, I thought I would just go ahead and post it as its own little snippet. I think it could potentially be a really good resource for some people. Anyway, if you want more information, I totally suggest checking out Dr. Steven Hassan's Twitter, his books, everything else, and just kind of joining the discussion on what constitutes a cult and what maybe doesn't constitute a cult. Anyway, have a good day, and I love you all. Stay out of cults.